The Jerusalem cross was the coat of arms for the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem. The Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem was a Frankish settler colony established in the year 1099. The Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem was part of the wider Outre-mer. French for overseas, these were 4 Catholic polities set up in the Levant. There was the county of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, the county of Tripoli, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The structure of these Christian polities were colonial in character. Firstly, it was minority rule. The settling Franks only made up about 15% of the population, but they ruled over the majority, which were Muslim Arabs. There was also Greek Orthodox Christians, Syriac Christians, Druze and Jews in the area. The Franks ruled over all of them, and they had a racial religious hierarchy. Muslims, Jews and Orthodox Christians had virtually no rights and functioned as serfs under Frankish lords. When the Franks arrived in the Levant, there was already an Islamic system of administration and governance in place, and there was already a tax collecting system called icta in place. The Franks kept the existing system, simply replacing Muslim overlords with Latin ones. Israeli historian Joshua Prower describes the Crusader states as European colonialism in the Middle Ages. And both archaeological and tax records confirm this. The Franks were a small ruling class who did not assimilate locally, but did depend on the native population for labour, goods and services. The term Franks started as a specific group of Germanic people from this area of Europe, but it becomes shorthand in the Eastern Mediterranean for all the Latin settlers. Crusader armies were pulled from all over Europe, but the leadership and the legal cultural template of the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem were overwhelmingly in French. The ruling class spoke Old French and used Frankish law. The Jerusalem cross and Crusader stories are papal propaganda. Colonizing the Levant was framed as holy obligation. Pope Urban II's 1095 call to crusade promised spiritual cleansing for participants. They got people to believe that reclaiming Jerusalem was some kind of divine providence. And the whole thing is still framed by Western historians as a holy war. But that religious framing obscures the economic context of medieval Europe. The push factor behind the Crusades was the enclosure of land under feudalism. Primogeniture is the name of the feudal inheritance system where the eldest son inherited everything. Primogeniture emerges gradually between the 9th and 13th century. Early medieval Germanic and Frankish elites usually divided the land between all of their sons. This was called partible inheritance. Charlemagne breaking up the empire among his heirs is a textbook example of partible inheritance. This reflected common European values at the time, where the wider kin group and community was prioritised over the nuclear family. Before primogeniture, the nobility in Europe treated land as divisible booty rather than a single corporate estate. Primogeniture is introduced by the Catholic Church via family reforms. From the late antiquity into the high Middle Ages, the Latin Church attacked kin networks and pushed monogamy, nuclear families, and primogeniture. This system of eldest son inherits everything benefited the church, the rulers, and the top nobility in a couple of key ways. The first and most stupid reason is it was nice and neat and easy to draw in their illuminated manuscripts. No, seriously, it gave a clear line of succession that the church could track. It kept military and tax units clear and measurable for Rome. One obvious heir meant fewer civil wars or succession crises. For rulers and tax collectors, it meant instead of thousands of very small little fiefs, you would have one big consolidated one. That meant each vassal had enough land to fund proper armoured men, so the rulers could actually raise armies when they needed to. It also protected the nobility's status across generations. A concentrated estate meant the main line, the eldest son, could marry well and consolidate further, instead of sliding down in the hierarchy. But most critically for the Crusades, it created a class of surplus sons. Younger sons who were disinherited went into the military or the church. This gives the church a constant supply of recruits for the Crusaders. Primogeniture was military recruitment infrastructure. It existed to keep estates large enough to produce armed men and younger sons who were dispossessed to feed the military. The Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem and the wider Crusade mission in the Levant was extraction economics, and it is important to keep talking about what the Levant produces, because the single most profitable Crusader industry in the Levant was sugarcane. Sugar is yummy and slightly addictive, and anything that is moreish and people want more of makes you a lot of money. Even in 1095, sugar was a high value export. So the Franks intensified production in the Jordan Valley. The environmental cost of that choice was severe for the locals because sugar cultivation was incompatible with traditional cereal and legume farming. So instead of locals growing nutritious crops, invaders were stealing the land to grow cash crops. This helped no one. It took from the locals in the Levant to provide Europeans with something they didn't need, simply because there was an opportunity for someone to make money. The indigenous population in the Levant were cultivating grains, olives, cotton, fruit, almonds, pistachios, sesame, and sumac. Everything they grew, the Franks took half. They even created a new pilgrim economy. They found a way to generate money by telling Europeans that Jerusalem was a holy site and then offering Christian pilgrimages. So now they could sell you lodgings and relics and guided access to the holy sites. The other racketeering opportunity for those who wanted to invest in the Crusades was the Silk Road transit taxing. The Levant coast is where the Silk Roads meet the Mediterranean. Whoever controlled these ports was taxing all goods that were coming from Central Asia and China into Europe. That is quite the bottleneck. The parallels between the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem and modern Israel's economic model are striking. You can pause to read. I will get out of your way. And Joshua Prower identified this exactly in 1951. 51! There had only been in Israel for 3 years. And you have an Israeli historian with archaeological evidence telling you this is a European colony. This is not a home for the Jews. And still, the settlement enterprise in the West Bank follows this same Crusader logic. They are taking more and more land in the Jordan Valley and in Lebanon for agricultural settlements. It actually is not an ethno-state project. That is the propaganda layer that hides the reality that most of the West Bank is for farming. And they farm bullshit cash crops to sell back to Europeans, not to feed local Israelis. The Italian republics were, in 1095, to the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem what the United States is to Israel today. And I'm running out of time, so I will explain what I mean by that in part 2.